Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. And my name is Carly Shortino Poulter, and I'm the director of the Arc Advocacy Network at the Arc of Indiana. And I want to welcome you all to Ask the Arc. We're really glad that you joined us this evening, and we've got a special guest who's going to be talking to us tonight. Um, but before we begin, I do want to let you all know that earlier today, the Family and Social Services Administration published new waiver amendments for the family support, CIH, health and wellness, and traumatic brain injury waivers. Those were just published today, and when you combine all four of those plus the plan for case management, that's about 1,250 pages. So we have not been able to read them all yet, but I do want to let you know that we are going to host a special webinar just on those waiver changes, likely in about 2 weeks, so that we have plenty of time to go through them and really decipher and analyze what the waiver changes that are being proposed are, so that you know what is in those proposed waiver changes, and so that you can provide your public comment on that. I can't answer any questions about it yet because, again, we have not been able to go through it yet with any detail, and we are going to go through that with a fine-tooth comb before we have our presentation. But I wanted to let everybody know about that so that you are expecting an additional invitation for a waiver outside of our normal Ask the Arc time. So, with that being said, I want to again welcome you all to Ask the Arc, and we have a really special guest tonight. Mike Dunn, who is one of our family advocates here at the Arc of Indiana, is going to talk about, looking ahead and planning for a good life. We talk to people all of the time about, they're calling up because they're trying to figure out what's going to be next in their loved one's life. They want to make sure their loved one has every opportunity possible. They want to make sure that they can have whatever life their loved one wants to have, but they don't always know how to do that. And so tonight, Mike Dunn's going to talk to us about all of that. Mike, thank you so much for joining us this evening. I really appreciate it. I do want to let everybody know that if they have questions, they are welcome to put the questions in the Q&A, which I'm actually not, well, I don't know that go ahead and put your questions in the Q&A, and we will answer those as we go along. And so now I'd like to turn it over to Mike Dunn.
Okay, thank you, Carly. Thank you for inviting me. As Carly mentioned, my name is Mike Dunn. I'm a family advocate with the Arc of Indiana. I've worked with the Arc of Indiana for about 4.5 years as a family advocate. I'm a individual also who I was born with cerebral palsy. Um, I I'm married. I have 4 children, 2 boys and 2 girls. Um, and we have 3 cats and 3 dogs. Um, I have 2 college degrees. I've worked in education and I've worked in retail and just done some different things. And now I'm with the ARC, working as a family advocate, helping families any way that I can uh, find the resources that they need or that their loved ones need. And growing up, you know, uh, growing up, I kind of always wondered, um, how I would accomplish the goals uh, that I had set for myself. I mean, I always had a desire to have a job, to have my own home, and to have a family. And I've accomplished all those things and then some. It's just growing up, I didn't um, know what that was going to look like to to accomplish my goals. And I talk to many families each and every day, as Carly mentioned, that's what they're wondering, and that's what they ask questions about. Um, and that looks a little different for everybody, um, how to accomplish those goals, but it is possible. And you know, anybody can do anything they want. It may look a little different than um the you know that what it may look a little different from the next person, but some ways that those goals can be accomplished is uh you know, using different services like the Medicaid waiver, home and community-based services. Um, I do have a family, and I do live on my own, and have we have our own home, and I have a wonderful support system. But my wife works, but I and so I also um, have um, I have the Medicaid waiver. I'm on the health and wellness waiver. So, and that the Medicaid waiver has allowed me to um, be as independent as I possibly can be, and help me achieve the goals that I've set forth, um, or that I've set for myself. Um, I mean, uh, I utilize these services to help me be as independent as I possibly can be. Um, and I've also uh, I've used vocational rehabilitation services off and on for over 25 years. Um, they've helped me find employment, and you know, when I've purchased homes, they've helped with um, different things that I've needed done in my home to to help me be as independent as I possibly uh, can be. And you can, uh, you know, your loved one can use these services too. Um, you know, vocational rehabilitation services, and um, you know, pre-ets, or the Medicaid waiver. There are so many um, services out there that people with disabilities can utilize. Um, we just have to figure out what's what services work best for them. And like I said, I talk to families each and every day, and share my own experience. And as a matter of fact, last week I spoke to a uh, a grandfather who was calling about his grandson, and he had questions about the Medicaid waiver. So we talked about that, and in the process of answering his questions about the Medicaid waiver, I kind of shared a little bit about my life, and um, and what I've achieved, and and then so he asked if I would to speak with his grandson, and I did, and we, um, you know, his grandson shared with me that he likes sports, and that he likes talking to people. So we talked about, um, you know, maybe him being a a, a sports broadcaster one day, and and what that would look like, and you know, um, and so I just encouraged him to um, you know, to continue to do well in school, and just let him know that he can do anything that he sets his mind to, we just have to figure out the right path for him to achieve that goal. I didn't want him to think that just because he had a disability doesn't mean that he couldn't um, uh, achieve the goals that he wanted, um, that he wants to achieve. But now, don't get me wrong, there has to be, um, like, you know, you have to be realistic too about what you want to do. Like, for example, when I was 8 years old, I wanted to be a veterinarian because I love animals. Um, but I don't have the fine motor skills to be a veterinarian. So being a veterinarian really wasn't um, a good option for me, even though I love and care for animals. So I found a different way that I can love and care for animals. And also, I mean, I wanted to, uh, you know, play college basketball, but um, I don't have the mobility to play basketball, um and I tried uh um to play wheelchair basketball, but I wasn't really good at that either. But so you have um to recognize what your limitations are, but um but and maybe go about things a different way. But I don't want anybody to think that they can't do something. Um, you know, that there's always a way to get something done. And for me, growing up, I had there were many times where people would tell me that I couldn't do something, and really that was motivation to prove to them that they were wrong, and that I could accomplish it. And so, in hindsight, I thank those people because I, uh, I've accomplished a lot more than most people thought I would, even including myself. So, um, but I just uh, I want everyone to know that there's always a way to, like I said, to get something done. And I think it's important to always, um, regardless of somebody's age, even if they're a small child, to l listen to them, to allow them to be part of the decision making process, throughout their life, um, and make those decisions together, um, and 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 when you allow an individual to be to be part of the decision making process, it's also teaching your child or your loved one to self advocate for themselves, and learning how to self advocate for yourself is so important. Um, because then people know what it is you need, and what it is that you want. So I think I'm going to take this moment and see if there's any questions in the Q&A, and we'll go from there.
We do have a couple of questions, Mike. Um, Well, actually, first we have somebody who's just thanking you for sharing your story, and your life experiences. And that they're really glad you're part of the ARC staff.
Well,
We've,
thank you. Thank you.
we've got someone else asking, how can professionals help young people with disabilities connect their personal dreams to realistic career paths without limiting their visions? That is an excellent question. Sorry.
Well, um, like you, I think the important thing is to um, sit down with the person, kind of map things out, and find out what it is they like and what their strengths are. Um, because for me, like I said, initially I wanted to be a veterinarian. Um, but because of my fine motor skills, that just wasn't an option. Um, but my love for animals never went away. So for me, it was, um, I've always had a lot of animals. And so I've learned how to train my animals on my own. Um, and then speaking from a more professional point of view, I have a degree in elementary education. Um, I always knew that I wanted to work with help people and work with kids in some fashion. Um, and so I got a degree in elementary education, and I think, and I surrounded myself with people that saw my vision and wanted to help me achieve my goals. So I think it's important to, you know, find your group and find people um, that will help you do that. Aside from getting a degree in elementary education, I mean, I've worked with youth off and on for 25 years, um, you know, um, in our youth group at church, and so people have allowed me those opportunities. So I think it's just finding, you know, the right group of people to help you achieve um, your goals that you want to achieve. So, and just finding those people that'll give you that opportunity.
Mike, that is an excellent point, and I want to talk about that a little bit too, if that's okay with you.
That's
You know,
fine.
we will get calls about a lot of individuals, especially young men, who want to join the military, and that is certainly a very laudable profession, and on the one hand, we'd like to support that. On the other hand, there are a lot of not only disabilities, but just diagnoses in general that specifically prohibit someone from joining the military. Not just disabilities like autism. If you have an autism diagnosis, you are not allowed to serve in the military. If you have certain other conditions, you are not allowed to serve in the military, even if you want to. One of the other things, though, is even something as common as asthma will prevent someone from being in the military. And a lot of times people don't necessarily realize that. And so when we have those situations where, somebody has a desire for something, but there may be some barriers, like Mike and wanting to be a vet, but not having the fine motor skills for that, or the individual on the spectrum who is not able to join the military. Part of it is we've got to understand the underlying part of that, because one of the things that we also commonly come across is that a recruiter may say something that they don't necessarily mean, because what they will say is, oh, well, you've got to be off your meds for 2 years before you can join the military. What they mean is you have to no longer need those medications, for example, for 2 years before you join the military. But what the person hears is, stop taking your meds. Well, we want to make sure somebody is not stopping their medication over something like this. So part of it is we've got to make sure that we are looking at what is the underlying desire? You know, with Mike, it was his love of animals. And so, what other careers are there that somebody who loves animals can do? Maybe they could be a vet assistant. Maybe they could work in a pet grooming place. Maybe there's around where I live, there are a flood of pet daycare centers. Maybe they can do that. But maybe it's also volunteering at the Humane Society or something along those lines. When we have that individual who wants to join the military, but isn't able to, what is it about the military that they like? Is it that they want to help people? Is it that they want to wear a uniform? Is it just no, it's the military itself that really calls them. Okay, well, what other jobs are there that may be able to do it to satisfy that need? If what they're wanting to do is help people, let's explore what other jobs are there to help people and really kind of dig into that and explore and discover what's out there. If it's that they like uniforms, hey, let's look at places that have uniforms and see what that gets you. But if it's really the military itself, then maybe that's talking about, hey, did you know that the military actually has a lot of civilian jobs that they need done? I think back to a video that we did about employment, probably, oh goodness, probably going on 10 or 15 years ago now, about a woman who had been working in a workshop and had gotten a job in the community. She actually worked at the police department and she had a police uniform. And what she would do is she would wash the windows and vacuum the floors and take the staples out of the paperwork and shred the paperwork. And she had jobs that she could do, jobs that were essential for what they needed, and jobs they needed done, but she was still working for the police department. She still had her own uniform. She was a valued member there. Everybody loved her. That's not something that most people think about, but that was a civilian job that she could do. And so part of it is kind of pivoting that a little bit. And that's where things like the pre-employment transition services or pre-ETS program that is through the vocational rehabilitation services, but it's specifically for 14 to 24-year-olds. That's where that can help because there's a lot of career exploration and discovery and self-advocacy skills taught through those programs. That's where when they are ready to get a job, working with Voc Rehab so that they can get the supports they need to get and then maintain that job. Maybe that's working with their waiver services to help build some of the skills that they may need for that. Or maybe one of their goals is to be able to live on their own. And I will say, as a parent, I'll be honest, is that terrifying? Heck yeah, that's terrifying. It's terrifying with both of my kids. But let's be honest, that's also a normal rite of passage, isn't it? But here's the thing, when your loved one says, "Hey, I want to move out, I want to live on my own," that doesn't mean we do that tomorrow. That doesn't mean we do it in 6 months either. It could take 6 years to get to that point. And so part of it is mapping out, okay, that is your goal. We want to help you with that. Let's start by figuring out what are the skills you need to be able to live on your own. Let's map those out, and then let's map out a plan on how you're going to learn those skills. And if you may not be able to do something on your own, is there some technology? Is there some adaptive equipment? Is there some other way that we can address those needs so that you ultimately can do that? We had a few more questions come in, Mike.
Hmm.
Um, let's see. Is VR still using the order selection process? And if so, well, I'm just going to stop. No, they are no longer using order selection, at least at this time. Okay, so you can go straight to vocational rehab. Now it might take a little while to get everything set up, but they are no longer using order of selection. And for those of you who aren't sure what we're talking about, at one point, vocational rehabilitation services implemented what was called order of selection. And when they were assessing people who needed VR services, they were looking to see how much support a person would need. And then they would put them in one of three categories, category one, category two, category three. Category one had the fewest needs, category three had the highest needs. And they started by serving those individuals with the highest needs first. And then once they were able to serve them, then they went on to level two, then they went on to level one. The good news is we were able to come out of order of selection a few years ago. And so now people can get served easier. Um, let's see. Um, if I build a handicap accessible home for my 26-year-old son, and the home is in his name and mine, will this be counted as an asset with him getting SSI and Medicaid? So, as long as he is living in the home, it is not considered an asset by either Medicaid or Social Security. So as long as he's living there, it's not counted. It's not counted against him. Um, and there are a lot of different options with that too. It is important for you to know that that if you are going to put the home in his name, Medicaid does have something called Medicaid estate recovery, so that when your son passes away, and assuming you are already gone by that point as well, Medicaid can come in and take the home to recover the cost of your son's care. Now, they will only take as much as it would be to reimburse them for his care, but I want you to know that because there are some options with that too. Um, And Mike, I want you to weigh in on this one. Would you agree that getting a good case manager to work with the person to help them achieve their dreams is important?
Yes, very much so. I have a very good rapport with my case manager. In fact, I've had the same case manager for over 13 years, um, which I know is very um, uncommon. I'm the minority, but my case manager is great. So yes, finding a good case manager, um, it helps very much.
And a lot of it too is kind of thinking outside the box, don't you think? Where, especially when we're talking about waiver services, sometimes everybody gets focused on the services that they've heard of. Well, on the Family Support and CIH waiver, there are more than 30 services available. On the health and wellness and TBI waivers, there are about 20 services available. And so part of it is also kind of thinking outside the box of, hey, if I want to do this, how can I make that happen? And maybe that's looking at some of those lesser known or lesser used services to see if there are ways to do that. Um, Mike, you were also talking earlier about, when you were growing up, your parents making sure that you got to try things. You got to try to do things in different ways and all that. Would you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I can talk about that. My parents were really no, you gotta go. My parents were really good when it came to that. Even um, they never really deterred me from doing much of anything. They may have had concerns or uh, apprehension, but if I wanted to do something, they would let me try it, uh, and then we'd figure out a way that it could be done. Um, uh, because I know when I told my parents that I wanted to be a teacher and earn a teaching degree, um, my mom had her reservations about, well, how is this going to happen or how is that going to happen? Um, but what I found was again, I surrounded myself with with a good group of people that wanted me to succeed, and figure and help me figure out a way to accomplish my goal. And I did that. And um, part of the way that I was able to accomplish that goal is when I did my student teaching. Um, I was given my own um, aid for clerical things like making copies and um, uh, you know, doing bulletin boards um, and things of that nature, and um, helping me uh, set up a classroom, and just doing a lot of the physical things that I couldn't do. Um, and by me having that aid, I was able to be successful and earn my my teaching degree. Um, and that's just one example of you know uh, of the way my parents uh, just kind of let it let me do it, and it's all trial and error. And what I would say was it's okay to express your concerns and be a little apprehensive about what your child or loved one may want to do, but instead, like Carly's mentioned, like I said earlier, I mean, be realistic about it. But eh, you know, um, instead of telling them no, help them figure out a way to accomplish that goal. Because in that aspect, my parents never um, told me no. They just said, okay, you want to do this, we're going to support you. And that gave me a lot of encouragement and empowerment. So,
All right, Mike, we've got another question that has come in. Individuals have recently been denied access to individualized communication supports needed for accessing and participating in post-secondary education and employment. These services were previously provided and paid for by VR with demonstrated success. What is the process for us to navigate this new barrier, discriminative policy, and decision? That is an excellent question, and frankly, kind of a depressing question. Um, I know that one of the things going on right now is that vocational rehabilitation services does not have as much money as they did in the past. During COVID, they got a lot of additional dollars to be able to provide supports to people, and that funding has run out. And so they're having to make some really hard choices about, what they can and what they should be covering. And it's not ideal, but it is something that we've got to deal with. Um, so one of the things I would think of, especially as we're talking about communication devices, in Easter Seals Crossroads in Indianapolis, has a contract for something called the In-Data Project. It actually stands for the Indiana Assistive Technology Act. Um, and what they do is they help people find a wide array of technology that could help with making life easier in a lot of different ways. That can be everything from adaptive equipment and assistive technology to things like apps that may be available to the general public, and sometimes maybe even for free. They've got a lot of information on both low cost and no cost technology. And so one thing I would do is I would start by talking to them and figuring out, what options are there, especially with assistive communication devices, and then, what types of programs are out there that could help pay for some of these things. Because yes, voc rehab is one option, and one of the things you can also do is you can appeal a decision like that. With that appeal, you would need to explain why, this technology would be so essential, why it would help somebody. And especially if you're talking about voc rehab, one of the things you want to do is you want to make sure that you're focusing that appeal on how it would help somebody either obtain or more importantly, maintain that employment, and how not having that equipment would potentially or likely lead to somebody losing their job. But then we could also look at other resources that might be out there to help cover some of the costs, whether that's using your waiver under the durable and medical equipment and supplies portion or service under the waiver. Maybe that's other grants that could be out there that we don't even know of. Maybe that's some special rebate options or some things from the manufacturer. And in data, because this is their specialty, that's something that they would have a better idea on. And sometimes it's also, using some of the equipment lending libraries that are out there so that you can try some equipment first to make sure that it's what you think it is and it does all the things you think it should do and that you want it to do before you make a purchase. Mike, do you have some other things
No,
you want to add?
I just kind of want to echo a little bit. Now, Carly's right. Crossroads Easter Seals, they've helped me get equipment before. Um, they got me a work desk and things so I could be successful. And they were also, I use voice to text quite a bit. And if that didn't work out, we were looking at other plans to help me get some devices if needed so I could be successful in my job, here with the Arc. So, you just can, yeah, continue to talk to people and, um, and, uh, Crossroads Easter Seals is a good place to start.
And I know that I know that equipment and technology can be essential, and can be the difference between success and failure. And so, making sure that you're able to explore all the different options, whether that's different funding options, whether that's low cost or no cost loans, whether that's or whether it's exploring, are there some other pieces of technology that may be available that might be able to do something similar or even do something better for a person. It is absolutely something to explore. So we had another question come in. Um, oh, okay. Sorry, I did not recognize. I didn't notice who submitted the question before, and now I see it. And this is something where somebody needs more of a communication partner rather than equipment. So I know what you're
Oh,
talking about now.
okay.
Believe it or not, a couple of years ago, the Bureau of Disability Services actually changed their definition of medical equipment and supplies when it comes to the waiver. And one of the things, and it was a mom who was advocating for her son who uses sign language, and he goes to places, and all they want to do is use a tablet and have him type. Rarely do people actually, sign, but that's the actual communication he needs because, believe it or not, American Sign Language is not based on English. It's actually based on French grammar. And so it is a completely different language, not just, a translation of English. And so one of the things she pointed out was that this is home and community-based services. He can't access the community if he has no means of communication. And so she was able to get the Bureau of Disability Services to change the definition to include interpreters as medical equipment. medical equipment and supplies through the waiver. And so what I'm thinking here in this particular case is, you know, do you start petitioning beads to include to include facilitated communication under that service provision, so that they might be able to cover that as well. So that is, you know, because a lot of this, some of this is thinking outside the box. And that's a little harder to do than people realize. But it is certainly something, um, we gotta find new ways to be able to do things. And that's one way to do it. Um, let's
And
see.
that,
Go
oh,
ahead, Mike.
no, I was just gonna say that's so true. And like I, um, I was the first one, if I remember correctly, um, to graduate with an elementary education degree, that was an individual, um, that was in a wheelchair and utilized an aid, um, that had never been done before. So, again, that's about, uh, like Carly said, thinking outside the box. How is something going to be accomplished? I wanted to, get this degree and get a teaching license. So how do we go about that? Um, and I worked with my faculty at, you know, my university, and then talked with VR, and we were able to accomplish that and achieve that goal. Now, granted, that was many, many years ago, and things are always changing, but um, there's always there's always a way to accomplish something, um, you know, and you got to think outside the box because and share those ideas with people, because if you're not if they're not in that situation, they're not going to recognize what needs to be done. So that's also part of the reason when I was in college, I was involved in student government. And one of the things that we did uh, a couple of years in a row is during, and March is coming up, but um, Disability Awareness Month, I rented wheelchairs from our local um, uh, what do you call them? Uh, like a home convalescent store, and people could, rent a wheelchair for 2 or 3 hours, and they went around campus in a wheelchair. And I had many people come up to me and said, I never realized how challenging it was to um, to get around campus in a wheelchair until I had to do that. And then these were also individuals who were on different committees on campus, and they would, um, you know, bring their uh, uh, experiences to these different committees to help make the uh, university more accessible for people with disabilities. Because I mean, we not only um, did I use uh, wheelchairs, but I also uh, we wanted people to see too. But we talked about the visually impaired and the hearing impaired. So we would also do different activities to simulate that so people could understand too. And it was, I mean, excuse the pun, but it was very eye-opening experience. So yeah, thinking out of the box is very, very important and vital.
Mike, you also talked earlier about how your parents, would let you try things. And I think for a lot of parents, and maybe I'm speaking for myself, but I think this is pretty universally true. really what we want to do is we just want to protect our kids and we want to protect them from every hurt. We want to protect them from, well, we want to protect them from everything, let's be honest. Um, and part of that means that we also don't want them to fail because we don't want them to feel bad. We don't want them to, we don't want them to have that experience and all that. But failure is also kind of an important thing, and it teaches us a lot. We learn. I joke that fail is not the four-letter F word you need to worry about because we learn from mistakes. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Oh, yeah, okay. Here's a great another little anecdote I have. Um, Going back to being in college and getting my um teaching degree, I was trying to get into the the program where you do your practicums and everything, and you have to take um an entrance exam and get certain scores in reading, um, you know, grammar and writing and math. Well, I had to take the math part 3 times um, before I passed, and I even had to delay getting into the program for a semester because I couldn't pass this um, the math part of this exam, and I even thought about giving up and not pursuing this anymore. But it's really something that I was passionate about. I wanted to help kids in, in some way, so I didn't give up, but I had to take a step back and realize, okay, what do I need to change here, and what do I, you know, to try to accomplish this goal. So I you know, I worked with a tutor and and read up on how to approach this test and how they scored the test. And the third time was the charm. After I did all that and did took an countless practice tests. I remember um, I- you know getting I think passing score was a 175 and I scored a 176. And when they said, um, when I saw that score and that I passed, I mean, if I could have, I would have done a backflip. So, um, but my parents were there all the way, you know, um, even through my failures and my obstacles and my setbacks, but they weren't that they didn't discourage me. They kept encouraging me and helping me figure out what I needed to do to accomplish this, if it was something that I wanted. So, you know, just because something is difficult or you failed the first time doesn't mean that it's not something that you shouldn't do. It could just be a setback, and you may have to have a different approach. Um, but yeah.
Okay. All right. Got a couple more things in here. Um, uh, So I've got somebody who's an instructor, and she says, "Thank you, Mike. Perhaps we could schedule a time for you to meet with our students if you'd be willing. I think you
Yeah,
could be a great mentor to them as they learn to advocate creatively and educate the community about their lived experience as a non-speaking person with a physical disability."
I
So,
would be more than happy to do that. So yes.
okay. Um, uh, All right. And this person was saying that they were having some audio difficulties, and so they were having to log off. But Mike, we've also had a lot of people who just want to thank you for sharing your lived experience. Um, because and I think that it helps. Um, and so um, somebody else was somebody else is wanting you to join them too. I think it helps to hear that lived experience and to hear, you know, hear from somebody who's gone through all of this. And for a lot of people on here, I know we've got a lot of professionals. I know we have a lot of family members, and we have some self-advocates. But I will say, from that family member perspective, and I think even from a professional perspective, hearing from a self-advocate who lives this every day is a completely different thing. We always say when you live it, you understand it in a completely different way. And so thank you so much for sharing your experiences, for sharing, what you have, your what you have found to be effective and being able to help families as they navigate through all of this. Thank you, Mike.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
All
I'm
right.
more than happy to help anytime. So thank
All
you
right.
for having me.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us this evening for Ask the Art. We hope you enjoyed tonight, and if you ever need any help, you are welcome to call us here at the Arc of Indiana. We are good at helping people think outside the box and find new ways to do things. And of course, you can always talk to Mike because he is part of the Arc Advocacy Network and one of our incredible family advocates here. Um, so, so thank you all for joining us. And I do want to remind you, today the state did publish new waiver amendment proposals for the family support, CIH, health and wellness, and TBI waivers. They are long. They uh, go anywhere from 306 pages to 365 pages. So we will be going through all of those for detail, and then we will be hosting a webinar to share with individuals what is in those proposed waiver amendments, so that you can make sure to provide your public comment in what you think should occur with those. Thank you so much, everyone, and have a great evening. Bye bye.
Thank you, everybody.